So our fourth reader this afternoon is Janlori Goldman. She is both from Akhmatova, New York, and around the corner. It's Greenwich Avenue, right? Greenwich Street. She teaches human rights, public health, and narrative medicine at Columbia and at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, right, is the term. She's a graduate of Sarah Lawrence, and she's a super great human being. Welcome to Janlori Goldman.
Thank you. This is great. I've got to thank Myrna and Rachel and Heidi for this book, this gorgeous book, and for choosing my chapbook. Poets House is kind of an amazing place. I think as Liz said earlier, so much happens here. I was here last week for a memorial for my friend Kurt Brown, and this room was full like this, and it was really sad. And now we're here and we're celebrating and we're reading, and that this space is so much. It's a place where, you know, we come to readings, we have readings. I never dreamed I'd be reading here. And then there's a little couch upstairs with a corner piece that I consider mine, where I sit and write. I think of it as kind of my office down here. And I think a lot of people feel that way, so I just am very grateful for this space and for all the people who make it happen here. And also just for all of you for coming out for this, because as you know, this is a solitary process, this writing. We're alone, we sit, and it's very quiet and very isolating sometimes. And so this is the part where we get to connect and we get to have the intimacy and kind of expose ourselves. And so I'm just really grateful to all of you for being here for that process. This is some season this fall. You know, so warm and so beautiful, and yet all the leaves are falling. And a lot of my poems, it turns out, have a lot about this season. And a lot of them happen to be in this book, which could just be an accident, I'm not sure. The Bear. A grizzly crawls into the station wagon, its left leg mangled, finds a plastic soldier and red dinosaur on the back seat. The bear settles in, blood drips to the floorboards. To recover or die, it doesn't know. But all the woods and everything it contains watches. This winter is coming too soon. Tomato plants heavy with unripe fruit, and still green leaves letting go of poplars, a slight stain of decay on the lawn. This may be the year to lie down, make a bed of witch hazel twigs. Other bears slow their pulse. Nothing more to forage or digest. Also this season, the high holidays, which I'm a very reluctant acknowledger of, but it, you know, every year it comes around and it's just in my blood. So I find my own little ways to acknowledge. There's an epigraph at the beginning of the poem from Yehuda Amichai, the Israeli poet, which is, the sunlight didn't break, we are broken. The word broken is broken. Yom Kippur. Today everything hurts, and I'm as close to God as I'll ever come or want to be. I try to forgive myself, fist knocking at the chest, a door that forgot how to open. The prayer book's spine against my palms, I sing loudly to drown out the dandruff flaked on the suit in the next row. Sing as if I do believe, as if the fervor had not been rocked out of me by the cantor whose polioed leg rubbed into me as we sang together in front of the high holiday congregation, as if I were still his student and he could still grip my waist. Always his smell of yellow breath and wear. That was when the old men said girls can never be rabbis. Girls can't stand before the Torah. And now in the synagogue, familiar as the couch leg that catches my pinky toe when I walk past it, I think of the woman asleep in the window well on my block, blonde wisping out of a hoodie, sneakers on the sidewalk like slippers by a bed. "No, I'm not hungry," she said. I come to this sanctuary from that chill. Wonder if this is the night I'll try to get that door open. This poem, a little bit of background about it. So during Stalin's reign of terror, Osip Mandelstam and his wife Nadezhda were friends with Anna Akhmatova. And there was times of great hunger, great deprivation, great terror and fear that you would be arrested and executed for your work. And so the end of this poem includes a little vignette that I read about the three poets that I read in Nadezhda Mandelstam's memoir, which if you haven't read it, it is fabulous. One last thing. A coffee and cookie, pillow under the knees, says that's all he needs. He's tired, not from lack of sleep, but the other kind that no amount of rest erases. The body is putting up a fight, a skin too thin, skinny-legged can't shit fight. Jane barely crossed 50 when she wore out, all wrecked from drink, each part of her refusing. Bottles hid behind the dresser, under the sink. How did Jane come in? It's helping him onto a commode, the talk of life's effort. It's being right up in someone's dying. That's what brings in the dead, burdened by the living's need to press one more thing to their skin. Still on the gurney, he says, "Remember Akhmatova's egg, the one she pressed on Mandelstam before his arrest, the one meant to be shared 3 ways? Here," she said, "you're going to prison. You eat it." I was thinking when I was listening to Leslie read, and I want to say too that it's such an honor to have my poems up against the 3 poets' work in this book. Just kind of staggering to sit and listen to everyone's poetry. But when Leslie was reading, I was thinking, I wish my poems were funny. I'm so sorry that they're not funny. It's great to laugh with poetry. Anyway, sorry about that. So this poem is called Baking in the 8th Month. And I look at Liz, and I see her. You're probably like in the 9.5 month. I don't know, but you're so compact. I mean, when I was in my 8th month, I would have been standing back here. Those of you who knew me when I was in that state, I was so proud I could rest a bowl on my stomach, no hands. Anyway, baking in the 8th month. That can be funny in between the poems. It's just in the poems, there's nothing funny. I'm so sorry. Baking in the 8th month. Rosemary soaked olives and sea salt, my mouth in licked delirium from this warm bread. Yeast swells, opens the well of yearn and ache for the grain at its start. Dark under cheekbones, darker from the navel straight down. This rise, a sign of life inside, my acre swollen to the brim. In a shallow pool I lay cooling, a slow fish carrying a slower fish. She flips like a caught trout, rolls a fin against her cell. In July, my girl makes a fist, crowns in a streak of rouge. I want to see the time ahead of well springs and be good. We do have to be good. Unclamp the breath, not the cord, my small deed. So this is a little risky move. I'm going to read a new poem. Part of the joy of being here is hearing a poem in the room for the first time. And it's an honor for me to kind of try that out on you. But it's in a form that's called the zuhitsu, which is a form I've been playing with a lot. It's an old Japanese form that, if any of you have ever read the Pillow Book of Sei Shonagon, She uses that form a lot, and some think of her as kind of starting us on that path. Kamiko Han then brought it into contemporary times, and she writes in that form. And it's really a way of taking so many things from our experience, from journals, from letters, from what we hear on the TV, from pieces of poetry, and incorporating it into the poem with lots of different voices. It too is kind of hard to reflect where my voice and where are the quotations, but I'm going to do my best. I wrote this while I was waiting for my sweetheart to finish up her surgery, which seemed to go on forever, 10 hours this summer, which is a nice long time to get a draft of a poem. The waiting room. 10 hours of TV, clocks on every wall. Out the window, the river once called Sound River eddies north and south in jumbled currents. What grabs on pulls away. What pulls away finds a spot to spin. In its wake, the memory of leaving. Sound, a part of the sea shielded from open water. Language as it splits from the body. A word with a cry of pain at its center that makes lips scrunch as if to suck in breath or wait for a kiss. To test depth with a pole or line. Right in the head, unmuddled. Swaddled in first blanket, unable to fly away. To do deeply, as in to sleep. As an actor, James tapped anger with days of sleep deprivation. He died this week in the bathroom of a fancy hotel. His teenage son banged on the door, cried out, "Dad!" Jim, as we called him, lived in the apartment above ours. In the elevator, I once asked if my music disturbed him. He asked if I could hear him and his wife yelling. On the big screen from CNN. 4 years after his death, Michael Jackson breaks record of longest time a human has gone without REM sleep, 2 weeks. Have you ever heard the sound of no sleep? A mother next to her newborn in intensive care, the he and haw of hard chair rocking, doctor's voice sounding in her sway as eyes fix on the child dying from separation, humming tubes and wires, monitors beeping, crazed insects trapped in fluorescent lights, and over that phrase the doctor uttered after delivering this baby blue. Don't get your hopes up. Come home, baby girl. Come home to mama. That doctor doesn't know how we survive. Mama, I don't want to be alone. Leave on the light. I'm afraid that when I scream, no one will hear me. I fear death. Not the actual passing, but the sound. A door shutting, a shallow breath, creaking window, lost child. That poem has a happy ending too. My daughter's now 20. Yelapa, Mexico. That night she slept on a bed of coins, and from somewhere on the beach she heard a familiar cry. Air can barely hold such grief. She wants to open into the sea, gape underwater like a whale, moaning out for leagues in the stuff. She wants to open into the sea, gape underwater like a whale, moaning out for leagues in the stuff that cupped first scream. Her mouth on the broken edge of creation and fields of hurt. Go back to bed. Fill the mattress with something softer until there are birds. Beyond the waves, under a blanket of ocean, humpbacks migrate, dark and wet dark. And this is my last poem. It's so interesting too, hearing Dawn's poems, because this poem is basically, the spark came from a very ancient place in the south of France. They call it Les Menères, a place of long stones that you come across, and they're kind of set in a field, and they were usually used, they think, for rituals that might be related to fertility and death. I want to dedicate this poem to Suzanne Hoover because she helped me write it, and we were together on this trip in the south of France, which was wonderful, and this was from a long day kind of walking around in this field after a hike. Les Menaires. A river begins at the top of a mountain, from rainfall or spring, gathers mass, gains speed, quenches a dusty bone, wets a meadow, turns sheep to drier pasture. We come from this, seasons of trickle and rush, flood and parch, the lucky break into the sea. It is hard to see bruises on water. If we can just reach ocean, even harbor or lake, our only duty will be to heal. Confide to fish if they'll listen, to snails if they can hear. We gather containers to hold us for a bit until the next bend, like a bowl carved before the harvest, a quilt sewn though there's no new life to swaddle. Standing over that water on a spot less bridge than plank, the call comes from the deep. Come back, we'll make a way.